massive ships appeared without warning in Earth's solar system. They were sleek and silver, larger than anything humans had ever built. 27 vessels hung in the darkness of space like sleeping giants, their hulls reflecting the distant light of the sun. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the small blue planet through the viewing screen. His reptilian features showed no emotion as he studied Earth. This would be conquest number 10,847 for the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Just another primitive world to add to their collection. Admiral, his communications officer said, "We are receiving a transmission from the planet." Kethvar nodded. This was always how it started. The primitives would beg, cry, or offer their wealth. Then they would submit, like all the others. The screen flickered and showed a human woman in a blue military uniform. She had short black hair and calm dark eyes. Behind her, Kethvar could see what looked like a command center with other humans working at various stations. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Coalition," the woman said. Her voice was steady and professional. "You have entered our solar system without permission. State your purpose." Kethvar was surprised. Most species cowered when they saw his ships. This human seemed completely unafraid. He straightened his 7-foot frame and spoke with the authority of someone who had conquered 1,000 worlds. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our great civilization. You will surrender all military forces immediately. Your leaders will report to me within 1 standard day to discuss terms of your submission." Admiral Chen listened without showing any emotion. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "Thank you for the information, Admiral Kethvar. However, humanity must respectfully decline your offer. We suggest you leave our system within 72 hours. The bridge of Kethvar's flagship fell silent. His officers looked at each other in confusion. In over 300 years of conquest, no species had ever simply said no. "Perhaps you do not understand," Kethvar said slowly. "We have 27 warships. Each one can destroy your cities from orbit. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Surrender now, and your people will be treated well as subjects of the Empire." Admiral Chen nodded politely. "We understand your position perfectly, Admiral. Our answer remains the same. Please leave our system." Kethvar felt his anger rising. These primitives needed a demonstration of imperial power. He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the large asteroid in their belt, the one designated as Ceres. Destroy it." "Yes, Admiral." A beam of pure energy lanced out from the flagship. The asteroid, nearly 1,000 kilometers wide, simply vanished in a flash of light. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a brief new star. Kethvar turned back to the screen, expecting to see fear in the human's eyes. Instead, Admiral Chen was speaking quietly to someone off-screen. She looked back at him with the same calm expression. "Admiral, we have noted your demonstration. Please observe ours." 3 points of light suddenly appeared around Kethvar's escort ships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the 3 Imperial vessels simply disappeared. No explosion, no flash of light. They were just gone. The bridge erupted in shocked voices. Officers checked their instruments frantically. The 3 ships had been completely destroyed, but the humans had used no weapons that Imperial sensors could detect. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the noise. "Admiral Kethvar, you now have 71 hours and 37 minutes to leave our system. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the blank screen in disbelief. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never lost a ship to primitive weapons. These humans had just destroyed 3 Imperial warships as easily as swatting insects. "Admiral," his science officer said in a shaky voice, "I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout their system. Whatever destroyed our ships, they have many more of them." Kethvar looked at the blue planet again. It no longer seemed helpless and primitive. Something was very wrong here. He had conquered worlds with technology far more advanced than what Earth appeared to have. Yet somehow these humans had weapons that could destroy Imperial ships without even being detected. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate backup, full battle group." His communications officer hesitated. Admiral, requesting, backup for a primitive world will damage your reputation. The High Command expects easy conquests. Kethvar looked at the empty space where his 3 escort ships had been. Send the message. While his crew worked frantically to understand what had happened, Admiral Chen sat in her command center deep inside Earth's moon. The facility was massive, built over 30 years in secret. Banks of computers processed information from sensors, scattered throughout the solar system. "Sarah," said General Martinez, walking up to her station. "That was impressive, but you know they'll be back with more ships." Admiral Chen nodded. "Of course they will. We've been preparing for this day, for 27 years, ever since we detected their expansion pattern. They think we're just another primitive world to conquer." She turned to look at the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet. "They have no idea what humanity is capable of when we're threatened. They've spent centuries conquering species that gave up after the first show of force. They've never fought anyone who fights back." "The asteroid belt weapons performed perfectly," reported Colonel Park from the weapons station. "All 17 platforms are ready for the next engagement. Mars orbital defense is at full readiness, and the Luna facility is running at maximum capacity." Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "Good. When they return, they'll bring more ships. They think overwhelming force is the answer to everything. They're about to learn why that's a mistake when fighting humans." She walked to the large viewing window that looked out at Earth. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel, peaceful and beautiful. But beneath that calm surface, billions of humans were preparing for war. Factories worked around the clock producing weapons. Soldiers trained in combat techniques developed specifically for fighting alien invaders. "They want to see what humanity does when threatened," Admiral Chen said quietly. "I think they're about to get their wish." Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar received confirmation that his message had been sent. High Command was not pleased, but they were sending reinforcements. A full Imperial battle group would arrive within 10 standard days. As he watched the small blue planet, Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Uncertainty. These humans were different from every other species the Empire had encountered. They showed no fear, and their weapons were unlike anything in Imperial databases. "Admiral," his intelligence officer said, "I've been analyzing the humans' transmission. There was something strange about the background." "What do you mean?" "The facility they were broadcasting from appears to be inside their moon. The construction would require massive industrial capability and decades of work. This suggests long-term planning specifically for military purposes." Kethvar considered this information. Most primitive worlds had no warning before the Empire arrived. But these humans seemed to have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. "Continue monitoring their communications," he ordered. "I want to know everything about these creatures before reinforcements arrive." As his ship drifted in the darkness of space, Admiral Kethvar began to wonder if conquest number 10, 8, or 47 would be as easy as all the others. Something told him it would not be. 10 days later, Admiral Kethvar watched as the Imperial reinforcements arrived. 135 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The fleet was massive, 5 times larger than his original force. Surely this would be enough to crush these stubborn humans. Fleet Admiral Drexnor commanded the reinforcements from his enormous battleship. He was older than Kethvar, with more scars on his reptilian hide from centuries of conquest. His reputation for crushing rebellious worlds was legendary throughout the Empire. "Admiral Kethvar," Drexnor's voice boomed through the communication system. "Explain to me how you lost 3 ships to primitives." Kethvar chose his words carefully. "Fleet Admiral, these humans are not typical primitives. They possess advanced weapons and show no fear of Imperial power. They have been preparing for our arrival for decades." Drexnor laughed, a harsh sound that made his bridge crew nervous. "Preparing? What could primitives possibly prepare that would threaten the Imperial fleet? Have you grown soft during your years of easy conquest?" Before Kethvar could respond, his communications officer interrupted. "Admirals, we are receiving a transmission from the human planet. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen again, still calm and professional. Behind her, the command center bustled with activity. She looked directly at Fleet Admiral Drexnor. "Fleet Admiral Drexnor of the Imperial 4th Battle Group," she said. "Welcome to our solar system. Your reputation precedes you. We know of your conquest of the Centauri colonies and the siege of New Titan." Drexnor was surprised that these primitives knew his service record, but he quickly recovered. "Then you know resistance is pointless. Surrender immediately, or I will demonstrate why 100 worlds have fallen before me." Admiral Chen nodded politely. "We have studied your tactical methods extensively, Fleet Admiral. Your preference for overwhelming frontal assault, your use of fear as a weapon, your habit of bombarding population centers to break enemy morale. Then you know you cannot win," Drexnor snarled. "Actually," Admiral Chen said, "we know exactly how to beat you. You see, Fleet Admiral, you have spent centuries fighting species that surrender when faced with superior numbers. You have never fought a species that treats warfare as evolution." The transmission ended before Drexnor could respond. He stared at the blank screen in fury. These primitives dared to lecture him about warfare? "All ships, attack formation," he commanded. "We will show these humans what happens to those who defy the Empire." The massive fleet moved toward Earth like a metallic storm. 135 warships spread out in the classic Imperial battle formation. It was a sight that had brought terror to 1,000 worlds, but as they approached the inner solar system, strange things began to happen. Ships on the fleet's edges reported brief energy readings, then nothing. Several vessels simply vanished without sending distress calls. Others reported their sensors being jammed by unknown sources. "Fleet Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "we have lost contact with 17 ships. No explosions detected. No enemy vessels sighted." Drexnor studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The missing ships had been spread across a wide area. What kind of weapons could strike so precisely without being detected? "Continue the advance," he ordered. "Maintain formation." As the Imperial fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, they entered what humans called the asteroid belt. To the aliens, it looked like empty space with scattered rocks. They had no idea they had just entered the largest minefield in human history. The attack began without warning. Asteroids that had seemed lifeless suddenly came to life, revealing hidden weapons platforms built into their rocky surfaces. Beams of energy lanced out from dozens of directions. But these were not the weapons platforms that concerned Admiral Chen. Those were just the distraction. The real weapons were invisible, moving through space like ghosts. Human ships, small and fast, using stealth technology that made them nearly impossible to detect. Each one carried enough firepower to cripple an Imperial cruiser. "Enemy ships decloaking," shouted the Imperial sensor officer. 50, no, 100. "I count over 200 enemy vessels." But even as he spoke, many of the human ships were already fading back into invisibility. They would strike once, then vanish, then reappear somewhere else to strike again. Fleet Admiral Drexnor had never seen anything like it. The humans fought like no other species in Imperial records. They did not form battle lines or attempt to match firepower. Instead, they struck from everywhere at once, then disappeared before return fire could find them. "All ships, concentrate fire on the visible targets," Drexnor commanded, but there were no visible targets. The moment an Imperial ship locked weapons on a human vessel, it would vanish. Sometimes it would reappear behind the Imperial ship. Sometimes it would not reappear at all, leaving the aliens to wonder if it had been destroyed or was simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. The battle raged for hours, but it was unlike any battle the Imperial officers had ever experienced. They were being hunted. Every time they thought they had found the enemy, the humans would be somewhere else entirely. "Fleet Admiral," the damage control officer reported, "we have lost 68 ships. The humans appear to have lost only 12. Drexnor could not believe what he was hearing. His massive fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could barely see. Meanwhile, in the Lunar Command Center, Admiral Chen watched the battle with grim satisfaction. The human fleet was performing exactly as designed. Fast, invisible, deadly. Each ship was controlled by only a few crew members and advanced artificial intelligence. This allowed them to make maneuvers that would kill most organic beings. "Admiral," Colonel Park reported, "the aliens are trying to retreat to long range and bombard the planet directly." Admiral Chen smiled coldly. "Show them why that's a mistake." As the Imperial fleet pulled back, they discovered that Earth's moon was not what it seemed. The entire surface was covered with weapons platforms, all of them now coming online. Massive energy beams reached across space to strike at the retreating alien ships. But the moon was not the only surprise. Mars had been turned into a fortress world over the past 30 years. The red planet bristled with weapons that could reach across the solar system. Even the gas giant Jupiter had been surrounded with automated defense platforms. Fleet Admiral Drexnor realized with growing horror that the entire solar system was a trap. Every planet, every moon, every large asteroid had been turned into a weapon. The humans had not just been preparing for war. They had turned their entire home system into the galaxy's largest military base. "Fleet Admiral," his communications officer said with a trembling voice, "Admiral Chen is transmitting again." The human admiral appeared on the screen, but now she was not alone. Behind her stood other humans in military uniforms, all of them watching the battle with calm, professional interest. "Fleet Admiral Drexnor," Admiral Chen said, "you have now lost 70% of your fleet. We suggest you withdraw immediately." "This is impossible," Drexnor roared. "You are primitives. You cannot defeat the Imperial fleet." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Fleet Admiral, you made a fundamental error. You assumed that because we had not built a galactic empire, we did not understand warfare. The truth is, we understand it better than you do. You conquer through superior numbers and technology. We win through superior tactics and the will to fight." She paused, then continued in a voice that was completely calm but somehow terrifying. "You have seen what humanity does when we defend our home. Do not make the mistake of finding out what we do when we hunt." The transmission ended. Fleet Admiral Drexnor looked at his tactical display and saw his proud fleet reduced to scattered, damaged ships. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never imagined such a defeat was possible. "Signal the retreat," he said quietly. As the surviving Imperial ships limped away from Earth, Admiral Chen turned to her staff. "Send a message to all human colonies and deep space monitoring stations. Tell them the Empire knows we exist now. The next phase begins immediately." General Martinez looked at her with concern. "Sarah, they'll be back. And next time they'll bring their entire military." Admiral Chen nodded. "I'm counting on it. We've shown them we can defend ourselves. Now we need to show them what happens when they threaten humanity's future." She looked out at the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. Somewhere out there, the Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of worlds and trillions of beings. They thought their size made them invincible. They were about to learn why size did not matter when fighting a species that had spent millions of years perfecting the art of bringing down creatures much larger than themselves. News of the defeat spread through Imperial space like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, subject species whispered in dark corners about the humans who had bloodied the Empire's nose. For the first time in centuries, beings who had given up hope began to dream of freedom again. Emperor Zexthal sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Imperial capital, reading reports that made his blood run cold. Fleet Admiral Drexnor had limped back to Imperial space with barely 30 ships from his fleet of 135. The humans had not just won, they had made it look easy. "Your Imperial Majesty," his military advisor said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach to this human world. No species has ever inflicted such casualties on Imperial forces." Emperor Zexathal's eyes blazed with fury. He was 12 feet tall, covered in golden scales, and had ruled the Empire for over 200 years. No primitive world would be allowed to make him look weak. "No," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the throne room. "If we allow one world to defy us, others will follow. The Empire rules through fear. If that fear is broken, we lose everything." He stood, towering over his advisors. Mobilize. The Grand Fleet. All of it. I want 50,000 ships, not the handful we sent before. Crush these humans completely. Leave nothing alive on their world. The advisors looked at each other nervously. The Grand Fleet had never been used against a single planet. It was the Empire's ultimate weapon, designed to fight wars against entire galactic civilizations. Your Majesty, the military advisor said, the Grand Fleet has not been assembled in over 50 years. It will take months to gather all the ships and crews. Then begin immediately, the Emperor commanded. I want the greatest military force in galactic history pointed at this insignificant little world. When we are done, no one will remember that humans ever existed. As preparations began across the Empire, intercepted human communications revealed something that made the Emperor's advisors even more nervous. The humans were not preparing to hide or run. Instead, they were talking about something they called Operation Endgame. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the largest gathering in human history. Every world leader, every military commander, every scientist working on the defense project was connected to the conference. The weight of their species' survival rested on the decisions made in the next few hours. The Emperor has mobilized their Grand Fleet, Admiral Chen announced. Our intelligence estimates 50,000 warships, possibly more. It is the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, and it is coming here to destroy us. Completely. The room was silent. Even the most optimistic leaders understood what those numbers meant. Humanity had defeated Imperial forces before, but those had been small fleets. 50,000 ships was beyond anything they had prepared for. However, Admiral Chen continued, we are not the same species that hid from their first contact. For 30 years, we've been preparing for exactly this moment. Every human colony, every space station, every deep space facility has been working toward one goal: showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home. She activated a holographic display that showed the entire solar system. But it was not the solar system that the Empire had seen before. Hidden shipyards around Jupiter revealed themselves, showing massive construction projects that had been kept secret for decades. Mars opened up to reveal underground factories the size of continents. Even Earth's moon split open to show the true size of humanity's military base. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chen said, I present Operation Endgame. For 30 years, we have been reverse engineering every piece of Imperial technology we could find. We have studied their tactics, their weaknesses, their psychology. We have built a fleet designed specifically to fight the Zephyrian Empire. The display showed human ships unlike any that had fought in the previous battles. These were not the small, fast vessels that had harassed Imperial forces. These were massive warships, each one incorporating technology from a dozen different alien civilizations, all improved with human innovation and human determination. How many ships? Asked General Martinez. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. 15,000 combat vessels, another 10,000 support ships, plus automated defense platforms, mobile weapons platforms, and the most advanced artificial intelligence network ever created. The room erupted in excited voices. President Williams of the North American Union raised her hand for quiet. Admiral, can 25,000 ships really stand against 50,000 Imperial warships? Admiral Chen's expression became deadly serious. Madam President, you are thinking like the Empire does. You are counting ships and comparing numbers. The Empire has spent centuries conquering through superior technology and overwhelming force. They have never fought a species that makes warfare into an art form. She walked to the holographic display and pointed to a section showing human fleet formations. The Empire builds their ships for intimidation and firepower. We build ours for killing Imperial ships. The Empire crews their vessels with millions of beings who surrender when things go badly. We crew ours with humans who would rather die than give up. The Empire fights to conquer. We fight to survive. She turned back to face the assembled leaders. But, most importantly, the Empire has never fought an enemy that adapts in real time. Every battle they have ever fought has followed the same pattern. Show up with bigger guns, demand surrender, crush any resistance. They have no experience with an enemy that learns from every engagement and implements improvements mid-battle. Admiral Chen activated another display showing human manufacturing capabilities. Our ships are designed to be rebuilt and upgraded rapidly. Our weapons can be modified between battles. Our tactics change based on what we learn about the enemy. When the Empire sends 50,000 ships against us, they will be fighting the same way they always have. We will be fighting in ways they cannot imagine. She paused, looking around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. There is something else. Our psychological warfare division has been studying Imperial communications for years. The Empire rules through fear, but that also makes them vulnerable to fear. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to be intimidated. They have no idea how to handle opponents who fight back harder when threatened. General Martinez stood up. Admiral, what happens if we lose? What happens to the human colonies, to Earth, to everything we have built? Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute determination. General, we are not going to lose. The Empire thinks they are hunters coming after prey. They are about to discover that they are prey coming within reach of hunters. Humanity evolved as persistence predators. We are the species that chased mammoths across continents until they died of exhaustion. We are the species that turned warfare into science, art, and philosophy all at once. She looked out through the viewport at the stars beyond Earth. The Empire has never fought humans before. They are about to learn what that means. As the meeting broke up, Admiral Chen walked to her private office. On her desk was a message from Deep Space Monitoring Stations. The Imperial Grand Fleet had begun moving. 53,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history, was heading toward Earth. Admiral Chen smiled coldly and opened a communication channel to every human military facility in the solar system. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Endgame is now active. The Empire wants to see what humanity does when our backs are against the wall. I think it's time we showed them. Across the solar system, human ships began emerging from hidden facilities. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids came online. Defense networks that had been built in secret began their final preparations. But in her heart, Admiral Chen knew that ships and weapons were not what would win this war. What would win it was something the Empire could not understand and could not fight. The absolute refusal of humanity to give up. The Empire was coming to destroy them. Humanity was waiting to teach them why that was impossible. The Imperial Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a metallic storm cloud. 53,000 warships stretched across space in a formation so large that it took light several minutes to travel from one end to the other. At the center of this massive armada was the Emperor's personal flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon. Emperor Zexathul stood in his command chamber, watching the small blue planet through a viewing screen that showed magnified images from across the fleet. This time, there would be no negotiations, no demonstrations of power. This time, the humans would simply be erased from existence. Your Imperial Majesty, his fleet commander reported. All ships are in position. Long-range sensors show significant human activity throughout their system, but nothing that could threaten a fleet of this size. The Emperor nodded. The humans had surprised them before with their tricks and traps, but no primitive world could stand against the combined might of the entire Imperial military. Begin the advance, he commanded. Destroy everything in this system. I want every planet, every moon, every asteroid reduced to dust. Leave nothing that could harbor human life. The massive fleet began moving toward Earth in perfect formation. It was a sight that had never been seen before in galactic history. The combined military power of an empire that controlled half the galaxy, all focused on destroying one small world. But as they moved deeper into the solar system, Admiral Chen watched their approach from her command center inside Earth's moon. Around her, thousands of human officers worked at stations that controlled the most advanced military network ever created. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Admiral, Colonel Park reported, the Imperial fleet is maintaining standard formation. They are not attempting to adapt their approach based on our previous engagements. Admiral Chen nodded. This was exactly what she had expected. The Empire had won every battle for centuries using overwhelming force. They had no experience with enemies who forced them to change their tactics. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she announced over the Fleet Communication Network. "The Empire has brought everything they have to destroy us. They think their numbers make them invincible. Today we show them why humans never give up." Throughout the solar system, human ships began moving into position. But these were not the same vessels that had fought in the previous battles. These were warships built specifically to kill Imperial vessels, incorporating 30 years of study into alien technology and weaknesses. The first engagement began at the outer edge of the asteroid belt. Imperial ships detected what appeared to be a small human fleet and moved to destroy it. But as they closed in, the human ships began to change. Modular sections detached and recombined in different configurations. Single ships became multiple smaller vessels. Large vessels combined to form massive weapons platforms. "What are they doing?" the Imperial Fleet commander asked as he watched human ships transform in real time. "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied. "Their vessels appear to be completely modular. They can adapt their configuration based on the tactical situation." But that was only the beginning of the surprises waiting for the Imperial fleet. As the battle developed, they discovered that human ships fought in ways that violated every rule of space warfare. They used their own damaged vessels as guided weapons, ramming them into Imperial ships at incredible speeds. They coordinated attacks across impossible distances with perfect timing. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to have no concept of acceptable losses. "Sir," the Imperial Damage Control Officer reported, "the humans are not attempting to preserve their ships or crews. They are treating their own vessels as expendable weapons." Emperor Zexthal watched the battle unfold with growing disbelief. The humans were outnumbered more than 2-1, yet they were winning. Imperial ships designed to intimidate entire worlds were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern. The human ships moved like living things, adapting their tactics moment by moment. When Imperial forces tried to surround them, they scattered and regrouped elsewhere. When the aliens attempted to use their superior numbers, humans turned the battlefield into a maze of debris and energy fields that made formations impossible. "Your Majesty," the fleet commander said nervously, "we have lost over 8,000 ships. The humans appear to have lost less than 2,000. Emperor Zexthal could not believe what he was hearing. His massive fleet was being defeated by primitives who should not even understand advanced technology. "All ships maximum firepower," he commanded. "Ignore the human fleet. Target their planet directly." But as the Imperial ships tried to push through to Earth, they encountered something that made their previous battles seem simple. The entire inner solar system had been turned into a fortress. Every planet, every moon, every large asteroid was armed with weapons that could reach across space to strike at attacking ships. Earth's moon opened up to reveal the largest military base in human history. Mars split apart to show underground factories that had been building weapons for decades. Even Venus, hidden behind its thick clouds, was revealed to be covered with automated defense platforms. "Impossible," Emperor Zexthal whispered as he watched the display. "They have turned their entire star system into a weapon." The battle reached its climax as the Imperial fleet found itself trapped in the inner system. Behind them, human ships harassed their rear formations. Ahead of them, every celestial body bristled with weapons, and all around them, smaller human vessels appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking without warning and vanishing before return fire could find them. Admiral Chen coordinated the battle from her lunar command center, watching as 30 years of preparation came together in perfect harmony. Human ships operated with minimal crews and advanced artificial intelligence, allowing them to make maneuvers that would kill most organic beings. When Imperial vessels tried to ram human ships, the humans rammed back harder. When the aliens tried to overwhelm them with numbers, humans used those numbers against them, creating confusion and friendly fire incidents throughout the Imperial fleet. "Admiral," General Martinez said, standing beside her command chair, "their formation is breaking apart. They are losing coordination." Admiral Chen watched as the massive Imperial fleet began to fall into chaos. Ships designed to fight in perfect formation were being forced to operate independently, Commanders who had spent centuries following standard tactics were faced with an enemy that had no standard tactics at all. "Signal all human vessels," Admiral Chen ordered. "Begin Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, human ships began implementing tactics that the Empire had never seen before. They stopped trying to engage in traditional space combat and instead began hunting Imperial vessels like predators stalking prey. Human ships would shadow Imperial vessels for hours, learning their patrol patterns and crew rotations, then strike, at the moment of maximum vulnerability. The psychological effect on Imperial forces was devastating. They had come expecting to fight a conventional battle against an outnumbered enemy. Instead, they found themselves being hunted by an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness and fear. "Your Majesty," the Imperial Communications Officer reported, "we are receiving surrender requests from over 200 of our own ships. Many commanders are requesting permission to withdraw." Emperor Zexthul stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His grand fleet, the pride of the Empire, was falling apart. Worse, intelligence reports were coming in from across Imperial space. News of the battle had spread, and subject worlds were beginning to rebel. "Sir," his intelligence advisor said quietly, "we are receiving reports of uprisings on 17 Imperial worlds. The subject species believe that if humans can defeat us, they can achieve freedom as well." For the first time in his long reign, Emperor Zexthul faced the possibility of complete defeat. The empire he had built through fear and intimidation was crumbling, because one small world had refused to be intimidated. As the battle raged around Earth, Admiral Chen received a priority message from deep space monitoring stations. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were reporting the same thing. Imperial forces were beginning to withdraw from frontier worlds to reinforce the core systems. "Admiral," Colonel Park said, "we are winning. The Empire is pulling back their forces throughout the galaxy." Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing the remains of the Imperial Grand Fleet. Less than 15,000 ships remained operational, and many of those were badly damaged. The largest military force in galactic history had been broken by human determination and human ingenuity. But she knew the real victory was not just military. For the first time in centuries, species throughout the galaxy were seeing that the Empire could be defeated. The psychological foundation of Imperial rule was cracking. "Open a channel to the Imperial flagship," she ordered. Emperor Zexthul's image appeared on the screen, his golden scales dulled with defeat. "Emperor," Admiral Chen said, "your Grand Fleet is defeated. You have a choice. Withdraw now, or watch it be destroyed completely." The Emperor looked at her with eyes full of rage and disbelief. "This is impossible," he said. "You are primitives. You cannot defeat the Empire." Emperor Zexthul sat in his throne room staring at reports that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. His Grand Fleet had limped back to Imperial space with fewer than 12,000 ships. More than 40,000 of the finest warships in galactic history had been destroyed or crippled by a single primitive world. But the military defeat was only the beginning of his problems. Across the Empire, subject worlds were rising in rebellion. Species that had been crushed centuries ago were suddenly finding the courage to fight back. The impossible victory of humanity had shattered the myth of imperial invincibility. "Your Imperial Majesty," his intelligence minister reported, "we now have active rebellions on over 300 worlds. The subject species believe that if humans can defeat us, they can win their freedom as well." The Emperor closed his eyes. In 200 years of rule, he had never faced a crisis like this. The Empire had been built on fear, and that fear was evaporating like mist in sunlight. "What do our spies report about human capabilities?" he asked. The intelligence minister hesitated. "Your Majesty, our analysis suggests that humanity has been reverse engineering Imperial technology at an unprecedented rate. Their shipyards are producing vessels that incorporate the best features of dozens of different species, all improved with human innovations. How long before their technology surpasses ours?" "Conservative estimates suggest 5 years, Your Majesty. Optimistic projections give us perhaps 3 years before human ships are superior to ours in every category." Emperor Zexthul felt a chill run down his spine. In 5 years, these impossible humans would have technology that surpassed the empires. In 10 years, they might have a fleet capable of threatening the imperial capital itself. Summon the War Council, he commanded. We must decide how to deal with this threat before it grows beyond our ability to contain. But before the War Council could convene, something unprecedented happened. Every communication system in the Imperial Palace activated at once. Screens throughout the building displayed the same image. Admiral Sarah Chen, sitting calmly in her lunar command center. Citizens of the Zephyrian Empire, Admiral Chen said, her voice carrying across the capital city and to every world in Imperial space. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Coalition. I have a message for your leaders. Emperor Zexthul watched in horror as his own communication networks were used against him. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had penetrated the most secure systems in the Empire. Admiral Chen continued speaking, her voice calm and professional. For centuries, your empire has conquered worlds through intimidation and overwhelming force. You have enslaved species, destroyed civilizations, and spread fear throughout the galaxy. Today, that ends. She paused, looking directly at the camera, as if she could see Emperor Zexthul in his throne room. Emperor Zexthul, humanity hereby delivers an ultimatum to the Zephyrian Empire. You have 30 standard days to comply with the following terms. First, you will immediately cease all expansion activities and release all species conquered in the past 50 years. Second, you will withdraw Imperial forces to your original territory and dissolve all occupation governments. Third, you will pay reparations to every world you have damaged. The throne room fell silent. Emperor Zexthul could not believe what he was hearing. A primitive world was dictating terms to the Empire. Admiral Chen's voice continued, carrying a note of cold certainty. If you refuse these terms, humanity will bring the war to Imperial space. And I promise you, Emperor, we fight very differently when we are the hunters instead of the prey. To demonstrate their reach, Admiral Chen activated a tactical display that showed the location of every major Imperial world. As she spoke, dots of light appeared around 12 different planets, including the Imperial capital itself. As you can see, Admiral Chen said, human ships are already in position throughout your territory. We have been studying your defenses for years. We know where your shipyards are located, where your supply lines run, which worlds are critical to your economy. The dots of light faded, but the message was clear. Nowhere in the Empire was truly safe. You have 30 days, Admiral Chen repeated. Use them wisely. The transmission ended, leaving Emperor Zexthul staring at a blank screen. In his throne room, advisors looked at each other with barely concealed panic. The impossible had happened. The Empire was being threatened by a species they had tried to conquer. Your Majesty, his military advisor said carefully, the human ships that appeared around our worlds, they were only detected for moments before vanishing. Our defenses could not track them. Emperor Zexthul realized the terrible truth. The humans had not just defeated his grand fleet. They had been preparing for this moment for decades, studying Imperial weaknesses and building the tools needed to destroy his empire. Over the following days, reports poured in from across Imperial space. Human ships appeared without warning around critical facilities, scanned defensive positions, then vanished before Imperial forces could respond. The message was clear. Humanity could strike anywhere, anytime. But the psychological warfare was even more effective than the military demonstrations. News of humanity's ultimatum spread throughout the Empire faster than official communications could contain it. On world after world, subject species began to whisper about the impossible humans who had made the Empire tremble. Your Majesty, the governor of the Rigel sector reported, we are losing control. The subject species are openly discussing rebellion. Our own forces are questioning whether the Empire can protect them from human retaliation. Emperor Zexthul walked to the great window of his throne room and looked out at the Imperial capital. For 2 centuries, this world had been the center of the greatest empire in galactic history. Now, it felt like a target waiting for human weapons to find it. His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. Your Majesty, We are receiving messages from sector governors throughout the Empire. Many are requesting permission to negotiate local truces with human forces. The Emperor turned back to his advisors. Are you telling me that Imperial governors want to surrender to primitives? Your Majesty, his intelligence minister said quietly. They are not primitives. Our analysis shows that humanity has developed technology and tactics that are in many ways superior to our own. More importantly, they possess something we have never encountered before. Absolute determination. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. And they do not negotiate from weakness. Emperor Zexthul considered his options. He could refuse the human ultimatum and fight a war against an enemy that had already proven they could defeat Imperial forces. He could try to negotiate, but that would mean admitting that the Empire could be forced to bargain with its subjects. Or he could accept the ultimatum and watch his empire crumble as world after world declared independence. On Earth, Admiral Chen received reports from human intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. The Empire was fracturing. Rebellions were spreading faster than Imperial forces could contain them. Most importantly, the psychological foundation of Imperial rule was collapsing. Admiral, General Martinez said, our deep space monitors are detecting massive troop movements throughout Imperial space. They are pulling forces back from frontier worlds to protect core systems. Admiral Chen nodded. Good. Every ship they recall weakens their control over subject worlds. Every world that gains independence makes the Empire smaller and weaker. She walked to the great viewing window that looked out at Earth. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel. Beautiful and peaceful. But Admiral Chen knew that humanity had changed forever. They were no longer a single-world species hiding in their corner of the galaxy. They had become something that the Empire had never faced before. A species that refused to be conquered. Colonel Park, she said, what is the status of our deep strike capabilities? All long-range fleets are in position, Admiral. We can hit any target in Imperial space within 72 hours of receiving orders. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. The Empire had 25 days left to comply with humanity's ultimatum. If they refused, they would learn what humans did when they went hunting. Emperor Zexthul made his decision on the 29th day. In a message broadcast throughout the Empire, he announced that the Zephyrian Empire would comply with human demands. Imperial forces would withdraw from recently conquered worlds. Reparations would be paid. The age of unlimited expansion was over. But Admiral Chen knew that the real victory was not the Emperor's surrender. The real victory was that species throughout the galaxy had seen the Empire defeated. They had seen that even the greatest military force in galactic history could be beaten by determination, ingenuity, and the absolute refusal to give up. As she watched reports of celebrations on newly freed worlds, Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had not just defended their home. They had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Empire had learned what happened when they threatened humanity. Now the galaxy would see what happened when humans decided to hunt. The stars shimmered against the vast darkness of space as the small Earth vessel USS Pioneer cruised silently through an unexplored sector. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes scanning the sensor readings with cautious interest. After 20 years in the United Earth Defense Force, he had developed an instinct for trouble. Right now, that instinct was screaming. Anything unusual on long-range scans, Lieutenant? Miller asked, his voice steady despite his concerns. Lieutenant Jack Howard, a young man with sharp features and sharper eyes, frowned at his tactical display. Nothing concrete, sir. But there's some strange energy fluctuations about 500,000 kilometers to starboard. Miller nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. The Pioneer wasn't built for combat. As a reconnaissance vessel, its job was to observe, record, and report back. If they encountered anything hostile, their only real option was to run. Communications Officer Green, status report on our transmissions back to Earth? Samantha Green turned from her console, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. All data packets from the past week have been successfully transmitted. Sir? Earth received and acknowledged our last report 6 hours ago. Good. Maintain regular communication protocols but prepare an emergency channel just in case. The bridge fell quiet as everyone continued their work. The Pioneer had been mapping this region for 3 weeks now, farther from Earth than any human vessel had ventured before. Their mission was simple: scout the edges of what humans called the Orion Arm, looking for habitable planets, resources, and any signs of intelligent life. No one expected to actually find that last item so quickly. "Captain," Howard's voice cut through the silence. "Multiple objects just appeared on our scans. They're big, sir, and they're moving fast, directly toward us." Miller leaned forward. "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying several massive shapes moving in perfect formation. They were sleek, their hulls covered in what looked like overlapping scales of some dark reflective material. The largest was at least 30 times the size of the Pioneer. "Are they artificial?" Miller asked, though he already knew the answer. Dr. Lisa Warren, the ship's chief scientist, nodded slowly. "Those are ships, Captain. Definitely not natural objects." "First contact," someone whispered. Miller straightened his uniform. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations. Communications broadcast first contact protocol Alpha. All languages, all frequencies. "Broadcasting, sir," Green confirmed, her fingers flying over her console. Minutes passed with no response. The alien vessels continued their approach now, close enough that details of their strange design were becoming visible. "They're scanning us," Howard reported, his voice tense. "Very powerful scans. They're cutting right through our shields." Miller frowned. Not the friendliest of greetings. "Any response to our broadcasts?" "Nothing, sir." The captain made a decision. "Navigator Martinez, plot us a course out of here. Maximum speed. Let's not assume." His order was cut short as the ship suddenly shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "We're caught in some kind of energy field," Engineer Alan Boyd shouted from the engineering station. "Our engines are offline." "Weapon systems powering up on the lead vessel," Howard reported, his voice tight with urgency. Miller's mind raced. "Green, emergency transmission to Earth now. Send everything we have on these ships and our coordinates." Samantha nodded grimly and began the transmission as the rest of the crew braced for whatever was coming. "Message away, sir, but I don't know if—" She was interrupted as her console sparked and went dark. "They're jamming us." The alien ships now surrounded the Pioneer, dwarfing the human vessel. A strange blue light engulfed them and the ship's systems began shutting down one by one. "Captain, they're pulling us toward the largest vessel," Martinez reported, desperately trying to regain control of the navigation systems. Miller stood tall, facing the view screen. "All crew, prepare for boarding. This is not a combat situation. I repeat, this is not a combat situation. We are representatives of Earth, and we will act accordingly." As systems failed throughout the ship, emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie red glow. Miller turned to his crew, faces he'd come to know and trust over many missions. "Whatever happens next, remember your training. We're making history today. Let's make sure it's the right kind." The ship shuddered again as it was drawn into what appeared to be a massive hangar bay. Through the view screen, they could see strange, armored figures lining up in formation. "They look military," Howard observed quietly. "Stay calm," Miller ordered. "No sudden movements when they come aboard." They didn't have to wait long. A loud hissing sound came from the main airlock, followed by the groan of metal as something forced the doors open despite the lockdown protocols. Tall figures in sleek armor poured onto the ship. They moved with precision that spoke of long experience, securing areas with practiced efficiency. Their helmets concealed any features, but their bodies were clearly humanoid, though taller and more slender than the average human. When they reached the bridge, the crew stood their ground as ordered. The aliens surrounded them, weapons raised, devices that hummed with an energy none of them recognized. One alien stepped forward, taller than the rest. It removed its helmet, revealing a face that was both familiar and utterly alien. The skin, was pale blue and hairless with large, multifaceted eyes that shimmered with an inner light. When it spoke, the sound was like nothing they had ever heard. Clicks and whistles that no human throat could produce. A device on the alien's wrist glowed, and suddenly words in rough English filled the bridge. Primitive vessel, you have entered territory claimed by the galactic hegemony. Your species is unknown to us. You will be contained and studied. Captain Miller stepped forward, hands open in a universal gesture of peace. I am Captain Frank Miller, of the United Earth Defense Force vessel USS Pioneer. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. We mean no harm, and would welcome. The alien made a sharp gesture, and Miller found himself unable to speak, held in place by some invisible force. Your cooperation is not requested, the alien said. It is required. The crew was efficiently separated and removed from the bridge. As they were led away, Samantha Green caught the captain's eye and gave a barely perceptible nod. The emergency signal had gotten through. Earth knew they were here. Earth knew what had happened. As they were marched through the massive alien vessel, Dr. Warren made mental notes of everything she saw. Lieutenant Howard cataloged their captors' weapons and tactical formations. Engineer Boyd studied the technology around them with careful eyes. Navigator Martinez mapped their path through the enormous ship. None of them spoke. None of them resisted. But all of them observed. Back on Earth, thousands of light years away, an alarm sounded in the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force. Fleet Admiral Gary Peterson was awakened from a rare moment of sleep. He read the fragmentary message from the Pioneer, saw the images of the alien armada, and closed his eyes briefly. Then he reached for the secure communication panel beside his bed. This is Peterson. Authentication code Alpha Tango 77 Romeo. Initiate Operation Vanguard. This is not a drill. Across Earth's solar system, hidden shipyards suddenly blazed with activity. Vessels that had been constructed in secret over decades began powering up their systems. Crews who had trained for this moment their entire careers rushed to their stations. The aliens who had captured the Pioneer believed they had encountered a primitive species taking its first tentative steps into space. They had no way of knowing that humans never sent their best ships first. They never revealed their true capabilities to the unknown. The Pioneer was just a scout. And now, the fleet was coming. The holding cell was small and bare, with nothing but a hard surface that might generously be called a bed. Jack Howard sat with his back against the wall, eyes closed, but mind racing. It had been 3 days since their capture, based on his internal clock. 3 days of separation from his crew, periodic interrogations, and careful observation. The aliens, who called themselves the Varaxians, clearly thought humans were primitive. Jack intended to let them keep thinking that, though he... Door to his cell slid open with a soft hiss. 2 Varaxian guards entered, their scaled armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Between them stood a slender figure in what appeared to be a scientific outfit rather than military gear. Up, one guard ordered through his translation device. The examiner has questions. Jack stood slowly, making a show of stiffness and fear. He followed them through a series of corridors that he carefully memorized, adding to his mental map of the station. They entered a room filled with strange equipment, screens displaying what looked like human biological data. Sit, the scientist said, gesturing to a chair in the center of the room. Jack complied, noting the restraints on the armrests that weren't activated. They still didn't consider him a threat. I am Chief Examiner Velkorian, the alien said. You will answer my questions truthfully. Jack nodded meekly. Yes, sir. I'm just a tactical officer. I don't know much. The examiner made a clicking sound that might have been amusement. Your vessel. It was a military craft, yes? Yes, sir, but just a small scouting ship. And how many such vessels does your Earth possess? Jack paused, pretending to be nervous. I'm not sure of the exact number. Maybe 30. We're still developing our space fleet. Velkorian made a note on a floating screen. Your weapon systems were minimal. Yes, sir. Just defensive measures. We're peaceful explorers. And yet you have a military rank. Jack shrugged. Earth combines its exploration and defense forces. It's more efficient for a small operation like ours. The questioning continued. For hours, Jack fed the aliens a careful mixture of truth, lies, and misunderstandings. Yes, Earth had faster-than-light capabilities, but only recently developed. Yes, they had weapon systems, but nothing that could threaten the mighty hegemony. No, they had no allies among the stars. They had only just begun exploring beyond their solar system. All the while, Jack absorbed every detail about his captors. The hierarchy, the technology, the guards' rotation patterns. Everything could be useful. 2 levels below, Dr. Lisa Warren was having a very different experience. The aliens were fascinated by human biology, particularly the adaptability that seemed unique among species they had encountered. Your cellular regeneration rate is remarkable, said the alien scientist, studying her latest test results. And your neural plasticity suggests an unusual capacity for learning. Lisa said nothing, watching as they analyzed blood samples and tissue regeneration rates. They spoke freely around her, clearly not considering that she might understand their discussions. But Lisa had always had a gift for languages, and after days of listening to their translator devices, she was beginning to recognize patterns in their natural speech. The Command Council meeting is scheduled for the next cycle, one scientist said to another. Admiral Zekthar will present findings on the human vessel. Will they decide on the exploration mission to the human homeworld? It seems likely. A small fleet only. The humans pose no significant threat. Lisa kept her expression neutral, but her mind was working rapidly. A planned expedition to Earth. This was critical information that needed to get back home. Somehow. Anywhere. Another section of the station, engineer Alan Boyd was making progress of his own. Left alone in his cell with what the aliens considered primitive tools to keep him occupied, apparently, they thought humans needed constant stimulation. Boyd had been systematically examining the cell's systems. The Varaxians used a crystalline technology for their control systems, something similar to theories Earth scientists had been developing. Boyd had spent his life understanding how things worked, and alien technology, while advanced, still followed logical principles. He had discovered a small access panel near the waste reclamation unit. The aliens likely never imagined a primitive human would recognize it as a control node, let alone understand how to manipulate it. Boyd carefully inserted a modified tool into the panel. If his calculations were correct, this should create a temporary fluctuation in the security field. Not enough to escape, but enough to send a pulse through the system that navigator Amy Martinez might detect from her cell. It was how they had planned to communicate during their last moments together on the Pioneer. Simple pulses in patterns that only the crew would recognize as meaningful. In the command center of the station, Admiral Zekthar reviewed the reports on the human captives with growing satisfaction. These creatures were physically resilient, but technologically primitive. Their ship had offered little resistance, and their weapon systems were almost laughable to the hegemony standards. The human homeworld, Earth they call it, appears to be ripe for expansion, he said to his officers. Their technology suggests they've only recently achieved interstellar travel. They will have no defense against even a modest fleet. A junior officer approached with a data crystal. Admiral, the xenobiologist Dr. Thazalok requests your attention on a matter regarding the humans. Zekthar took the crystal with annoyance. Another concern from our cautious doctor? What is it this time? He reviewed the data quickly, his annoyance growing. Dr. Thazalok had prepared a lengthy analysis suggesting that human cognitive patterns showed unusual adaptability and problem-solving capabilities that might indicate hidden potential. Theoretical concerns, Zekthar dismissed, handing the crystal back. The fact remains their vessel fell to us within moments. Prepare a briefing for the Hegemony Council. I will recommend a small fleet be dispatched to this Earth to establish our dominance and begin the assimilation process. Yes, Admiral, the officer acknowledged, though his expression betrayed a hint of concern. Dr. Thazalok was known for his insight into new species. Back on Earth, activity had reached a fever pitch. The fragmentary distress call from the Pioneer had triggered humanity's long-prepared contingency plans. Deep within a mountain complex in North America, Fleet Admiral Gary Peterson stood before a room filled with ship commanders, each face grim with determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," Peterson began, his voice echoing in the silent chamber, "for decades, we have prepared for this moment. First contact has occurred, but not as we hoped. The Pioneer has been taken by what appears to be a hostile force, calling itself the Galactic Hegemony." He activated a holographic display showing the alien vessels captured in the Pioneer's final transmission. "Captain Miller and his crew are prisoners, but they are also our eyes behind enemy lines. We believe they're still alive, and we intend to keep them that way." Peterson touched a control, and the display changed to show a massive fleet of ships. Earth. Ships hidden throughout the solar system. Operation Vanguard is now active. The UEDF flagship Retribution will lead the first wave. Captain Diane Foster, you have tactical command of the rescue operation. A tall woman with dark skin and determined eyes stood. "Yes, Admiral. The Retribution is ready. We can deploy within 12 hours. Good. Your mission is twofold. Rescue our people and make it abundantly clear to this hegemony that humanity is not to be trifled with." Peterson looked around the room. "We have hidden our true capabilities for precisely this scenario. These aliens believe they've captured a primitive scout ship. They have no idea what's coming for them." As the meeting concluded, Peterson moved to a private communication terminal. A message was waiting. The Pioneer's communication officer, Samantha Green, had managed to establish a quantum entanglement connection through a hidden device the aliens had not detected. The message was brief but crucial. "Hegemony planning Earth expedition. Crew gathering intel. Send help, but be warned, they are numerous." Peterson allowed himself a small smile. Miller and his crew were doing exactly what they had been trained to do. Now it was time for Earth to do its part. The hegemony had no idea they had just kicked a hornet's nest. They thought they had captured a simple scout vessel. They were about to learn it was only the beginning. Deep within Earth's orbit, hidden behind the moon, a massive ship floated silently in space. The UEDF Retribution was unlike anything humans had publicly acknowledged building. At nearly 2 kilometers long, its sleek hull was covered with advanced armor that absorbed light rather than reflected it, making it almost invisible to standard sensors. On the bridge, Captain Diane Foster stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as her crew prepared for humanity's first interstellar war mission. She was 45 years old, with short gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen enough combat on Earth to know what was coming. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the weight of responsibility she carried. Her second-in-command, Commander Paul Wilson, responded promptly. "All systems green, Captain. The fleet is reporting ready status, 120 ships awaiting your command." Foster nodded. 120 warships that the rest of humanity didn't know existed. For decades, Earth had been building, in secret, preparing for this exact scenario. Resources that could have gone to solving problems on Earth had instead been funneled into creating a fleet capable of defending the planet from exactly the kind of threat they now faced. "Communications, patch me through to Admiral Peterson." A moment later, the Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain Foster, I take it you're ready to proceed." "Yes, sir. The fleet is prepared to move out on your order." Peterson's expression was grim. "We've received additional communications from the Pioneer crew. The alien force, this galactic hegemony, is preparing to send ships to Earth. We need to intercept them before they reach our solar system and demonstrate that humanity is not the easy target they believe us to be." "Understood, sir. And the rescue operation proceeds as planned. Your primary mission is to recover our people. Your secondary mission is to make it abundantly clear that attacking Earth would be a costly mistake." Foster allowed herself a small smile. "That should not be difficult, sir. Good hunting, Captain. Earth is counting on you." The screen went dark and Foster turned to her crew. "You heard the Admiral. Let's go get our people back." Navigation set course for the coordinates provided by the Pioneer. Weapons. Bring all systems online but keep them powered down until my command. We want to surprise them." As orders echoed. Across the bridge, Foster sat in her command chair and touched a control panel. "All ships, this is Captain Foster. Today we make history. Today humanity shows the galaxy that we will not be conquered. We will not be subjugated. And we will never abandon our own. Prepare for quantum displacement jump in 5 minutes. Foster out." Throughout the massive ship, crew members moved with purpose. Unlike the aliens who had captured the Pioneer, humans had been preparing for war for thousands of years. They knew how to fight, how to adapt, and most importantly, how to win against superior forces. And they had one more advantage. The aliens had no idea what was coming. On the hegemony station, Captain Frank Miller felt the slight vibration in his cell wall. 4 short pulses, then 2 long ones. The signal from Boyd had worked. The crew was communicating. Miller placed his hand against the wall and tapped back, confirming he had received the message. Their plan was moving forward. After days of careful observation and information gathering, it was time to act. The door to his cell slid open, and 2 guards entered. "The Admiral wishes to speak with you," one said through its translator. Miller nodded and stood, allowing himself to be led through the station's corridors. This was unexpected, but potentially useful. Any direct contact with the alien leadership was an opportunity to gather more intelligence. They brought him to a large chamber dominated by viewing screens and what appeared to be a 3-dimensional map of the nearby sector of space. Admiral Zekthar stood at the center, his tall, blue-skinned form imposing even from across the room. "Human," the Admiral said as Miller was brought before him. "I wish to inform you personally that we have dispatched vessels to your homeworld. Soon your species will join the hegemony as a subject race." Miller kept his expression neutral. "The people of Earth are peaceful, Admiral. There's no need for military action." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your deception is unnecessary. We have analyzed your vessel and found it to be of primitive design. Your weapons systems are basic. Your homeworld will have no effective defense against even our smallest warships." Miller allowed himself to look worried. "Admiral, please. There are billions of innocent people on Earth. They will be treated fairly as long as they accept hegemony rule," Zekthar said dismissively. "Your species has potential as a labor force. Those who resist will be dealt with appropriately." As the Admiral spoke, Miller noticed something on one of the screens behind him. A sensor reading showing unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. His heart raced. Could it be? "Return him to his cell," Zekthar ordered. "We will collect the rest of your crew when the subjugation of your world begins. You will witness the beginning of a new era for your species." As the guards led Miller away, he fought to keep the hope from showing on his face. Those energy signatures could only mean one thing. Earth had received their message. The fleet was coming. In her laboratory cell, Dr. Lisa Warren had made a discovery. The sample of her blood the aliens had taken was reacting strangely with their testing equipment. Something about human biology was confusing their sensors. She watched as the alien scientists argued among themselves, their clicks and whistles becoming more agitated. Their translation devices were off, but Lisa had learned enough of their language to understand the basics. They were concerned about human immune systems, specifically how quickly they adapted to new pathogens. One scientist seemed particularly worried that humans might be resistant to their standard control methods. A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. The scientists rushed to a communication panel, and Lisa strained to hear their conversation. Her blood ran cold at what she managed to translate. Multiple unknown vessels and massive energy signatures not in the database. The Earth fleet had arrived. In the engineering section, Alan Boyd felt the change in the station's power systems immediately. Emergency protocols were activating, drawing power from non-essential systems, including the security fields in the Yaum detention area. This was their chance. He quickly accessed the panel he had been secretly modifying and sent a surge through the system, overloading the already strained security network. His cell door's lock failed with a soft click. Boyd pushed it open carefully, checking for guards. The corridor was empty. the aliens too busy responding to whatever emergency had triggered the alarms. He moved quickly to the next cell, where he knew Navigator Amy Martinez was being held. Within minutes, he had her door open as well. "What's happening?" she whispered as they moved through the corridor. "I'm not sure," Boyd replied, "but I think our ride is here." On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Foster watched as the fleet emerged from quantum displacement, appearing seemingly out of nowhere just outside the Hegemony Station's sensor range. "All ships accounted for, Captain," reported her tactical officer. "No detection from enemy forces yet." Foster nodded. "Good. Deploy Scout Group Alpha to locate the Pioneer crew. Battle Groups 1 through 5, move into Formation Delta. We'll advance slowly and give them time to notice us." Her lips curved into a slight smile. "Let's make sure they get a good look at what they're dealing with before we make our demands." As the Earth fleet moved into position, sensors began picking up increased activity from the Hegemony Station and the small number of ships docked there. "They've spotted us, Captain," the tactical officer reported. "They're powering up weapons and shields." "Hold position," Foster ordered. "Open a channel. Let's introduce ourselves." The communication officer worked his console. "Channel open, Captain." Foster stood tall, her voice clear and commanding. "Attention, Galactic Hegemony Forces. This is Captain Diane Foster of the United Earth Defense Force flagship Retribution. You are holding Earth citizens against their will. Return them immediately, or we will take them back by force." For several long moments, there was silence. Then a response came through, the alien voice tinged with what sounded like disbelief. "Impossible. The human world does not possess this level of technology." Foster's smile grew colder. "You captured a reconnaissance vessel, Admiral. That was your first mistake. Preparing to attack Earth would have been your last. You have 1 hour to return our people. After that, we will retrieve them ourselves." As she ended the transmission, Foster turned to her tactical officer. "Show them what we're capable of. Target that small moon with the graviton cannon. Low power." "Yes, Captain." Outside, a beam of concentrated energy shot from the Retribution, striking a small, uninhabited moon in the distance. The celestial body shuddered, then broke apart into perfectly even sections that slowly drifted away from each other. "Message sent," Foster said quietly. "Now we wait." On the Hegemony Station, Admiral Zekthar stared at the sensor readings in stunned silence. The human fleet was larger and more powerful than anything they had anticipated. And that weapon, nothing in the Hegemony arsenal could match it. For the first time in his long career, the Admiral felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Admiral Zekthar paced the command center, his composure cracking with each new report. The human fleet wasn't just large, it was technologically advanced beyond what should have been possible for a species that had only recently achieved interstellar travel. "How did we miss this?" he demanded, slamming his fist onto a control panel. Their reconnaissance vessel showed nothing of this capability. His second-in-command, a veteran officer named Krelvos, spoke carefully. "Admiral, it appears the humans deliberately sent an outdated vessel as their first contact ship. They were testing us." The Admiral hissed in anger. On the main display, the human fleet held position in perfect formation, 120 warships, each bristling with weapons the Hegemony sensors couldn't even properly classify, and at the center their flagship, a vessel nearly as large as a Hegemony cruiser. "Status of our defense fleet?" Zekthar asked. "The 7th Battle Group is 16 hours away at maximum speed," Krelvos reported. "We currently have only 3 patrol vessels and the station's defenses." The Admiral closed his multifaceted eyes briefly. 3 patrol ships against that human armada was suicide. But he had his pride, his position, his duty to the Hegemony. "Prepare battle stations. We will not surrender to a species we only discovered days ago." As his officers rushed to comply, a junior communications officer approached nervously. "Admiral, we've lost contact with Detention Level 4. Security reports. The human prisoners are escaping." Jack Howard moved silently through the corridor, 2 stolen Varaxian energy weapons tucked into his belt. Behind him followed Samantha Green and 3 other crew members they had managed to free. Status? He whispered into a small communication device Boyd had assembled from parts of their cell control panels. Boyd's voice came through softly. We've secured access to level 3. Martinez has located what looks like a shuttle bay. Still working on finding the captain. Good. Dr. Warren, I'm accessing their data networks now, Warren's voice replied. Their systems are in chaos. The Earth fleet has them in complete disarray. Jack smiled grimly. Keep moving. Remember, we need to secure a communication hub. Captain Miller needs to speak directly with our fleet. They rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of Varaxian guards. Without hesitation, Jack dropped to one knee and fired. The alien weapon discharged with surprising force, sending a pulse of energy that knocked the first guard off his feet. The humans moved with practiced efficiency. They had spent years training for combat situations, even the scientists among them. The Varaxians, used to dealing with already subjugated species, weren't prepared for the aggressive counterattack. Within moments, the guards were down, and the humans were moving again, deeper into the station. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Foster watched the tactical display with narrowed eyes. Any response to our message? Nothing official, her communications officer replied. But we're picking up increased chatter and energy readings. They're mobilizing their defenses. Foster nodded. As expected. They're too proud to give in without at least a token resistance. She turned to her tactical officer. Status of Scout Group Alpha? They've breached the station's outer defenses. No resistance yet. I think we caught them completely by surprise. Good. Foster stood and straightened her uniform. Launch fighters. I want a full perimeter around that station. If any of their ships try to escape, disable them, but do not destroy unless absolutely necessary. She walked to the main viewport, watching as smaller craft launched from the Earth vessels streaking toward the Hegemony station. She had hoped the aliens would see reason and return the Pioneer crew peacefully, but she had been prepared for this outcome. Captain, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from inside the station. It's using Pioneer communication protocols. Foster spun around. Put it through. The screen flickered, showing a human face. Lieutenant Howard, looking bruised but determined. Retribution, this is Lieutenant Howard of the USS Pioneer. We've broken out and secured a communication hub. Captain Miller is leading another group to the main hangar. Lieutenant, Foster replied, relief evident in her voice. Good to see you alive. What's your situation? We're scattered throughout the station. 22 of our 24 crew accounted for. The aliens are in disarray, but they're starting to organize a response. We need extraction, and soon. Understood. We have teams incoming. Hold your position, and... Howard suddenly looked off screen, his expression changing. They've found us. We need to move. Sending you station schematics now. Miller is headed for Hangar Bay 3. The transmission cut off abruptly. Foster turned to her crew. You heard him. Direct the extraction teams to Hangar Bay 3 and get me those schematics. Frank Miller pressed his back against the wall, peering around the corner toward the hangar bay entrance. 2 guards stood watch, unaware of the humans approaching from behind. On 3, he whispered to the small group with him. 1, 2, 3. They rushed forward, taking down the guards before they could sound an alarm. Miller quickly accessed the door controls, thanking the universe that Dr. Warren had decoded enough of the alien control systems to give them access. The hangar bay door slid open, revealing a large chamber filled with various craft. Miller recognized them as short-range shuttles perfect for their needs. Boyd, he called softly, can you fly one of these things? The engineer examined the nearest shuttle with professional interest. The controls are different, but the principles should be similar. Get me inside and I'll figure it out. As they moved toward the shuttle, a loud alarm blared throughout the hangar. Doors at the far end slid open and a squad of heavily armed Varaxians poured through. Take cover, Miller shouted, diving behind a cargo container as energy blasts scorched the air around them. In the command center, Admiral Zekthar watched with growing fury as reports of human resistance came in from all over the station. How had they coordinated so effectively? How had they overwhelmed his trained guards? "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessels have launched fighters. They're surrounding the station." Zekthar knew he was out of options. The reinforcements were too far away, and his current forces were no match for the human fleet. But he would not surrender, not personally. "Prepare my shuttle," he ordered, "and send all available forces to Hangar Bay 3. The human captain is trying to escape with his crew. I will deal with him myself." In Earth orbit, Fleet Admiral Peterson watched the live feed from the Retribution with grim satisfaction. The operation was proceeding as planned. The hegemony forces were outmatched and the rescue teams were already on their way to recover the Pioneer crew. But Peterson knew this was just the beginning. The galactic hegemony was vast, according to the intelligence they had gathered. This confrontation was a small skirmish compared to what might come if the aliens decided to commit their full forces against Earth. He touched a communication panel. "Captain Foster, status update." Foster's voice came through clearly. "Extraction. In progress, Admiral. Minimal resistance so far. The hegemony forces appear to be in disarray." "Good. Remember, we want to demonstrate our capability without unnecessary destruction. This is about rescuing our people and establishing a clear boundary. We don't want a prolonged conflict if it can be avoided." "Understood, sir. Though from what we're seeing, they don't seem like the type to back down easily." Peterson frowned. "Then make sure they understand the cost of continuing this fight. You have authorization to use whatever force is necessary to bring our people home." As the communication ended, Peterson looked out at the stars visible from his office window. Humanity had hoped for peaceful first contact, had prepared for it for generations. But they had also prepared for this outcome, a hostile alien force that saw them as easy prey. The hegemony was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humans. In Hangar Bay 3, the firefight intensified. Miller and his crew had taken cover behind various cargo containers and equipment, returning fire whenever possible. Boyd and Martinez had reached the shuttle and were working frantically to get its systems online. "Captain," Boyd called out, "I've got it. Systems are powering up." Miller nodded, turning to the rest of his crew. "Fall back to the shuttle. Cover each other." As they began their fighting retreat, a new group of Varaxians entered the hangar, led by a familiar blue-skinned figure. Admiral Zekthar had arrived. His tall form unmistakable even from a distance. He carried what appeared to be a ceremonial weapon, its surface glowing with energy. "Miller," the Admiral's voice boomed across the hangar. "You will not escape. Your fleet cannot save you." Miller turned to his crew. "Get to the shuttle, I'll handle this." The captain stepped out from behind cover, his stolen Varaxian weapon trained on the Admiral. "It's over, Zekthar. Look around you. Your station is compromised. Your forces outmatched. Earth is not what you thought it was." The Admiral's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "This changes nothing. The hegemony spans thousands of worlds. Your fleet is impressive, but it cannot stand against our full might." Miller smiled coldly. "That's where you're wrong. What you're seeing out there, that's just the beginning. Earth has been preparing for this moment for generations." As they faced off, a loud explosion rocked the far side of the hangar. Through the smoke, the Earth extraction team moved with precision and discipline that startled the Varaxian guards. Their armor was unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Lightweight, but seemingly impervious to energy weapons, with built-in systems that adapted to the aliens' attack patterns in real time. "Captain Miller," called the team leader, a woman whose armor bore command insignia. "I'm Major Kelly Wright. We're here to bring you home." Miller nodded, still keeping his weapon trained on Admiral Zekthar. "Perfect timing, Major. We were just discussing the future of human hegemony relations." The extraction team quickly secured the area, forming a protective circle around the Pioneer crew members. Boyd had the alien shuttle powered up, its engines humming with energy. Admiral Zekthar watched with growing rage as his guards fell back under the relentless advance of the human soldiers. "This is not over, Miller," he hissed. "The hegemony will not tolerate this insult. We will bring our full might against your world. Miller lowered his weapon slightly. That would be a mistake, Admiral. What you're seeing is just a small fraction of Earth's defensive capability. We've been preparing for this moment for generations, not because we wanted war, but because we expected it. Before the Admiral could respond, the station shook violently. Emergency alarms blared throughout the hangar. Major Wright touched her helmet. Captain, we need to move now. The Retribution has disabled the station's main weapons and propulsion systems. This place is going to lose gravity and life support soon. Miller nodded, then turned back to Zekthar. You have a choice, Admiral. You can continue this fight and lose more of your people, or you can recognize that humans aren't the easy conquest you thought we would be. For a moment, the Admiral seemed ready to attack despite the overwhelming odds. Then slowly he lowered his weapon. This confrontation is postponed, human. But the Hegemony Council will hear of this, and they will not be as reasonable as I am. Miller backed toward the extraction team. Tell your council that Earth is open to peaceful relations, but we will not be subjugated. Remember what you saw here today. As the humans boarded the shuttles, both their own and the commandeered alien craft, Admiral Zekthar watched with burning eyes. His career was likely over after this failure, but he had learned something valuable about these humans. They were not what the hegemony was used to dealing with. They were something new and dangerous. The shuttle streaked away from the disabled hegemony station, escorted by Earth fighter craft. Inside the lead shuttle, Captain Miller sat beside Major E. Wright, watching through a viewport as they approached the Earth fleet. Quite a sight, isn't it? Wright said, nodding toward the massive ships. Miller nodded, still processing the scale of what he was seeing. All this time, I knew Earth was preparing, but this Operation Vanguard has been in development for 50 years, Wright explained. Ever since our first deep space probes detected alien transmissions, we hoped for peace but prepared for war. As they approached the Retribution, Miller was struck by its size and design. Unlike the bulky hegemony vessels, Earth ships were sleek and angular, designed for speed and maneuverability as well as firepower. Captain Foster is waiting to debrief you, Wright continued. Your crew performed exceptionally, sir. The intelligence you gathered will be invaluable. Miller smiled tiredly. They're the best, each one of them. The shuttle docked smoothly in one of the Retribution's massive hangar bays. As the Pioneer crew disembarked, they were greeted by medical teams and an honor guard. At the center stood Captain Diane Foster, her uniform crisp and her expression respectful. Captain Miller, she said, extending her hand. Welcome aboard the Retribution. Earth has been waiting for your return. Miller shook her hand firmly. Thank you, Captain. I see Earth has been busy while we were away. Foster smiled. Very busy, and thanks to the data your communications officer managed to transmit, we'll be even better prepared for what comes next. 3 days later, a formal meeting took place aboard the Retribution. The hegemony had sent representatives, not Admiral Zekthar, who had been recalled, but a diplomatic team led by a senior member of their council. The human delegation included Captains Miller and Foster, Fleet Admiral Peterson, who had arrived from Earth, and Dr. Lisa Warren, whose insights into hegemony biology and technology had proven invaluable. The alien diplomat, who introduced himself as High Counselor Venzara, was clearly uncomfortable with the situation. The Hegemony Council has reviewed the events at Outpost 7, he began formally. While we maintain that your vessel violated our sovereign territory, we acknowledge that certain misunderstandings occurred. Admiral Peterson nodded politely. Misunderstandings indeed, such as your assumption that humans would be an easy conquest. The counselor's blue skin darkened slightly. The hegemony does not seek conquest, merely expansion and incorporation of new species into our collective. Without their consent, Miller added quietly. Venzara ignored the comment. We propose a mutual recognition of territories. The hegemony will acknowledge Earth and its immediate stellar neighbors as sovereign human space. In return, humans will respect hegemony boundaries. Peterson exchanged glances with Foster and Miller before responding. That's a starting point. But there are other matters to discuss, specifically the treatment of our reconnaissance crew. and the threatened invasion of our homeworld. Unfortunate misunderstandings, the counselor repeated stiffly. Dr. Warren spoke up. While at your facility, I noticed several species serving the hegemony under what appeared to be coercive conditions. Is forced servitude standard hegemony policy? The counselor's multifaceted eyes narrowed. The internal affairs of the hegemony are not open for discussion. They are when they might affect humans, Foster said firmly. We're not interested in becoming another subjugated species in your empire. Benzara stood straighter. The hegemony spans thousands of worlds across multiple spiral arms. Your impressive fleet is just that. Impressive, but limited. Do not overestimate your position. Admiral Peterson smiled coldly. Counselor, I think the lesson of the past week is that you should not underestimate ours. The fleet you encountered represents only a fraction of Earth's defensive capabilities. We developed them in secret precisely because we anticipated meeting species like yours. The negotiations continued for hours, with neither side willing to give much ground. By the end, a tentative agreement was reached. A neutral zone would be established between Earth and hegemony space, with neither side permitted to establish military outposts within it. As the alien delegation prepared to depart, Counselor Benzara approached Miller privately. Your species is unusual, Captain. Most newly discovered races are eager to join the hegemony for protection and technological benefits. Miller looked the alien directly in his strange eyes. Humans prefer to stand on their own, Counselor, and we don't respond well to threats. So, we have learned, the counselor replied. But remember this, you have surprised the hegemony once. It will not happen again. 1 month later, Earth had established a permanent military outpost at the edge of the neutral zone. The newly constructed frontier station, commanded by Captain Foster, housed a rotating contingent of Earth's most advanced ships and served as a listening post for any hegemony activities. In her office overlooking the vast docking bay, Foster met with Dr. Warren, who had been appointed as Earth's chief xenobiologist. On her desk sat a report detailing communications from several species within hegemony space. Species that had reached out secretly to Earth after news of the confrontation had spread. It seems we've become a symbol, Foster said, scanning the report. These species see us as potential liberators. Warren nodded. The hegemony has ruled through technological superiority for centuries. We're the first species they've encountered that matched or exceeded their capabilities right from first contact. Thanks to our paranoia and secrecy, Foster said with a slight smile. Thanks to our preparation, Warren corrected. And it's only the beginning. The data we gathered from their station has already led to significant advancements in our own technology. Foster looked out at the stars visible through the large viewport. They'll be watching us, testing our resolve. And we'll be ready, Warren replied confidently. On a secure channel, Foster's communication panel chimed. She activated it to see Admiral Peterson's face. Captain, he said without preamble. The Second Fleet has reached its destination. Outposts are being established in 7 new star systems beyond hegemony scanning range. Foster nodded. Any response from our new friends? None yet. But our message was clear. Humanity is not just arriving on the galactic stage, we're changing the play. The hegemony thought they captured a simple reconnaissance vessel. Instead, they woke a sleeping giant. As the communication ended, Foster turned back to the viewport. Out there, among the countless stars, a new chapter in human history was being written. The galactic hegemony had thought they found an easy conquest. Instead, they had found humanity, adaptable, resourceful, and ready for whatever the universe might throw at them. The fleet had arrived.